Hello, my name is Rich Campanaro, and this is my This I Believe final project for Catholic Mass and its music. I was born and raised Catholic, with everyone in my family being the same and fairly religious. My nana and nana are particularly religious and go to church every day and often encourage our family to come every Sunday. I attend church at St. Patrick's Parish in Yorktown, New York, which was also where I was baptized and received my first communion and confirmation rites. This is also where all my siblings and my cousin receives their rites as well, and is where my nano and nana go every day. Before I joined this class and went on these field studies, this was the only church I had ever been to. It is not a bad church, but when you go to the same church for 20 years, you don't really get to hear and learn many new things, music-wise. Over the course of this semester, I had the chance to visit 6 different churches spanning all over New York City, where I experienced many different cultures and forms of liturgical music. The churches I visited were Corpus Christi, St. Ignatius Loyola, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Borromeo, the Chapel of the Resurrection, St. John's Kingbridge, and the Church of St. Paul the Apostle. Each Mass I attended was different from the previous and unique in its own way. This was able to give me a much larger sample of all different kinds of liturgical music. There were some churches with traditional music like St. John's, some with gospel like St. Borromeo, and some even with folk-like music like St. Paul the Apostle. However, one common theme I've noticed at each field study is that the better the liturgical music is, the higher the participation rate is. And when there is good music and high participation rates, there is an overall larger sense of community amongst the churchgoers. So because of this, I believe that liturgical music has the power to bring people together and create a strong sense of community. Before I get into how good liturgical music brings people together, I'm going to give an example of how the opposite holds true. This example would be St. John's of Kingsbridge. Although it was a nice enough church, the demographic was mostly elderly people and the participation levels were very low. As you can hear in this video, there is barely any response from many members of the congregation, and the partition and the singing was even lower. And because of this, it created a very dead and semi-unwelcoming environment. It definitely wasn't the close-knit sense of community that I felt at some of the other churches with more lively and higher participated in music.
He ascended in heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, who the Father, the Son, and the Lord are glorified, was spoken through the prophets. I believe in one holy Catholic Apostolic Church. I confess one baptism for the forgiveness of sins, and I look forward to the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. Amen. On this first study.
Now, a complete contrast to this experience was my field study at St. Borromeo, the Chapel of the Resurrection. Even though I had never been there before and was sitting only with my classmate, several members of the clergy and congregation came up to me and had casual but pleasant conversation with us before the Mass. During the Mass, the pastor talked to the congregation in a very informal manner and gave off a very comfortable vibe. When the choir began singing, a cappella I may add, the congregation became alive. Everyone was singing along and everyone knew all of the words. The church became filled with gospel music, and in those moments it felt as if everyone singing, and even me, were a part of a close-knit community. And while the church might not have had the highest ceilings or the second-floor organ, they made just as good of music and inspired an even greater sense of community among myself and the congregation. For the first time in all of the field studies, I truly did not feel the slightest out of place. Even though I was in an unfamiliar surrounding with complete strangers, the fact that everyone was actively participating in the Mass together made it seem like I was in the right place. This is the fact that good, inspiring liturgical music can have on a Mass and a congregation of people. It can turn complete strangers into a community, even if it's just for the length of the Mass. In order to confirm my belief that liturgical music can bring people together and create a sense of community, I asked the most consistent churchgoer I know her opinion. So in conclusion, here are my nana's thoughts on the power of liturgical music, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Do you think that liturgical music has the power to create a sense of community within a church, if it's
Yes, I do.
sacred enough? And have
Yes,
you seen that at St. Pat's?
absolutely, yes.
Nice. Can you give an example of that?
I see that, everyone is more or less willing to participate and to sing.